Okay. Hi guys, my name is Aigul. I'm the host of Solopacker and I'm actually from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. And this is our first podcast. And today's topic is going to be about travel buddies. And I have my friend here from Singapore. Adi, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Adi. My full name is Adi Raj. People prefer to call me Adi because it's easier to pronounce. And I know Aigul since 2000, I want to say 17, right? Yeah, 2017 in September when I went to Kyrgyzstan for the first time. Why I chose Kyrgyzstan, I have no clue. I just saw the tickets and I saw countries that were bordering China because I wanted to club this Central Asia trip with Western China. And,
You've been here twice, right?
I came here. No, I only came once. I came once in
then it wasn't
2017.
2017. Wait, it was in 2018 because you came for the Nomad Games.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I came for the Nomad game. You know, that's the thing. I had no clue about the Nomad Games. I had no clue.
Yeah.
I just knew that I had just Googled the pictures of Kyrgyzstan and it seemed, and obviously it is a very, very beautiful, gorgeous country. And it is thanks to travel buddies, speaking of the topic of your podcast today. It is thanks to a travel buddy who was from the States. She actually told me that, oh yeah, there are these Nomad Games going on. And then I think maybe a day later after that, I saw a bunch of posters in the hostel about where the Nomad Games were. But here's the fun thing about the Nomad Games, that you saw a schedule on let's say on a poster, and then you talk to person A and they tell you, no, these games are not today. These games are the other day. It was a mass confusion. So I'm kind of passive and a bit introverted, not very introverted, a bit passive and introverted that way. So I decided that I see around me there are people who have spent more time in Bishkek than I have, and who clearly have a better understanding of what is the truth and what is not, or what is the updated information and what is not in about the Nomad Games. So I was just like, okay, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I'm gonna follow you. So I just followed like my so-called travel buddies, and we became very good friends. I will talk about the two of them later. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, actually you're right. You know, the marketing for the Nomad Games was so poor. Well, in Kyrgyzstan, unfortunately, we don't have much budget for marketing. So yeah, like people who were outside of the country. Actually, in 2018, it was better organized than in 2014 or 16, because it was for the third time that the Nomad Games were taking place here. So I had messages on Facebook or on WhatsApp already asking me about the Nomad Games, and they were not in the country yet, like they were traveling somewhere outside of the country. So yeah, it was much better marketing. You're really right about the schedule, but at least for the third games, we at least had a schedule, even though, you know, it didn't really follow the schedule, but at least we had it, because the first times, you know, even the schedule wasn't there. So, and for the third one, when you came, we had a hippodrome. It was newly built, but it was finished just a few days before the start of the game. So we are really, like, Kyrgyz people are so last minute people. We do everything last minute.
But you know, of course it was it chaotic? I wouldn't call it chaotic, but it was just a bit of uncertainty here and there about schedules. So like during the Commonwealth Games in Singapore, and Singapore is known for like very well structured and everything. So you can actually, on your phone, you can see live schedules. Okay, which game is at what time and everything.
And it follows the schedule.
And it follows the schedule, but doesn't mean it's not chaotic, because there was a lot of people. But for the World Nomad Games, especially for the games that were held in the valley, where they had the drama, the show about horse racing and the storytelling, and the yurts from different countries who were participating in the Nomad Games. and the archery. By the way, I'm going to use your podcast to give a shout out to the World Nomad Games that are held in. Are they only held in Kyrgyzstan or
Well,
across
actually,
country?
the first three times it was only held in Kyrgyzstan because Kyrgyzstan is the one who came up with the idea of the Nomad Games. But in 2020, yeah, it was going to take place in Turkey. Yeah, I've heard somewhere near Istanbul, but
Right.
now with the coronavirus, I'm not sure how it's
Of
gonna
course.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was going to be scheduled for like October, somewhere in October.
So when was the first Nomad Games? World
In
Nomad.
just 2014 in September.
Oh. And I
Yeah.
attended the one in 2018.
18. So actually, when you attended, you were able to buy tickets and you were able to find your seat with your ticket. But in 2014, I went to all three of them. I'm such a fan of Nomad Games. In 2014, there were no tickets. Like whoever gets there first can watch the game. So you see a bunch of locals, they just get to the seat and, there's the sitting like a platform like that. Like horizontal, they just sit and they're like, these 10 seats are mine. My relatives are coming. And this person, spends there like 5 hours, for example, before the start of the game to make sure that all the seats are taken. So yeah, and because we have some local relatives, actually my cousin got married to a local guy. She also is the one, like she was sitting there with her daughter and she took 3 more seats for me and my sisters, so we were safe. We just, and still, she kept calling us. She's like, come now, people are fighting for the seat. So we had to get there 2 hours before the game, even us. Yeah.
We had that experience when we went to watch Kokboru. Is that the way you pronounce Kokboru?
Kokboru,
And
yeah.
just for your listeners, let me describe to you, because if Igul describes Kokboru to you, it'll be very from a technical standpoint. Let me describe Kokboru to you from a culture shock standpoint. So it is an insanely fun game to watch. I think if you're the one playing the game, oh my gosh, I think you need to be well trained in upper body strength as well as horse riding. So here's what it happens. Imagine a football field and there are 2 goalposts, except instead of goalposts, there are 2 pits, right? On either side of the field. And there are, if I'm not wrong, 5 players in each team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And these 5 players, they're all on horses. And instead of a football, it is a dead sheep. Dead goat, sorry. Yeah. And this goat is not 2 or 3 kilograms. It is at least 30 to 40 kilograms
up
per
to 30,
goat.
yeah.
Up
to 30
30
kilograms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way it works is that a football can be kicked around, but when you're on a horse and there's a dead goat lying around, you need to, while holding the leash on your horse, you need to bend down all the way, pick up that goat from its skin. There is no handles or whatever, and you need to run with it. And
you have to have really strong hands.
Yeah, strong hands, strong everything, because even if your legs are not strong enough, you're gonna fall off that horse.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we were just amazed at the stamina, the strength, the sheer competition. And the final match was between the fiercest competitors, Kazakhstan versus Kyrgyzstan. That was the final match, I remember. Yeah. And at least 4 players had blood on some part of their body by the end of the match. So, but it's not to say it was an unfriendly match. I think after the match they all shook hands and everything. So it was all in the competitive sporting spirit. And I also saw one guy fall into the pit along with the goat.
Yeah. They get so dedicated. Yeah.
So that was Kokboru. So it's basically like 2 teams, horse, dead goat, and 2 pits, and you watch it on a stadium similar to like how you would watch a football in the hippodrome. That's where we watched the thing, and it was insane. And the only reason why I was able to make it there is because my travel buddy, shout out to Elaine if she's listening to this, and she was the one who actually guided me to tell me, okay, this is where the game is, this is when it starts. Of course, it didn't start on time, so I think we waited for about 2.5 hours before it started. But it was totally worth it because, I mean, anyway, we were there to travel, right? It's not like I have an appointment. So whether I wait for 2.5 hours, heck, I waited for 2.5 hours at the Iranian immigration at my last trip in Iran. And not because I had any visa problems. Luckily, with a Singapore passport, I think as long as you get a proper insurance at the immigration office there, your entry is visa free for Singapore passport holders. And there was nothing wrong with my application. I had the local contact and everything. And I was just waiting my turn patiently. And that took about 2.5 hours. And I did not think too much about it because A, I was traveling. B, I find that when you solo travel, you have to leave your assumptions, your cultural assumptions, and your infrastructure assumptions. You have to leave them behind where you came from, regardless of which country you come from. So if, let's say, I would have come from a country which has, let's say, no subway, right? And then I come to Singapore and I see a subway, I would think that, oh my gosh, this subway has too many people. It is so crowded. It is so fast. The doors closed. I will get a bit overwhelmed if I don't forget to leave my, taking taxis or my own private vehicle. If I don't leave that assumption behind, I would have trouble in my solo travels. Yeah.
Right.
So at least I did not mind the wait in Kyrgyzstan for the Kokboru game. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, it's a really rough game, like you described, a really rough, wild game. So actually it's quite risky as well for the players who play the game. They really enjoy it, but it is. There were some cases when, for example, the player got hurt, and even like became handicapped, or the horse got hurt. And the thing is, like, we don't have good vets here. So if the horse gets hurt during the Kokboru game, then usually it gets slaughtered, and we eat horse meat. So they just slaughter the horse and then they just sell the meat right away while it's fresh, because Islam is the main religion here. You're not allowed to sell the meat of a dead animal. So it has to be cut in a halal way. Like it's cut in a halal way, and then it's sold. But if it's dead, then you cannot slaughter it and then sell the meat.
But for the horse, okay, let's say for example, if unfortunately
you need to slaughter it while it's alive. Yeah.
Oh, so if the horse is really badly injured, instead of waiting for it to die and then it cannot be consumed, it will be kind of thrown away in that sense. Instead of that, while it still has some life, it will be slaughtered in the halal.
Well, supposed to be, but horse meat is the most expensive type of meat here in Kyrgyzstan. So I did meet people, like, for example, I have a friend, he is a horse guide in Chongqing, and then he had his horse also, like, as he was just walking, he got slipped and then he got injured really bad. So and he wanted to save his horse. So he did his best, but he couldn't. The horse died. So then anyways, he slaughtered the horse, and because people in the village, everybody already knew that his horse died, nobody would buy his meat. So anyways, he decided, he took the meat and submitted to the meat factory. Yeah, and of course it's really cheap. For example, if normally he would get a price for real fresh horse meat for like maybe 5 times more, but because he's submitting to the meat factory, it will be like at least 5 times less expensive.
Okay. I'll share something with you. My very first time in Cambodia, when I went to solo travel there. So I happened to meet a local potter. So she makes like pottery, and then later I discovered that usually people go to Cambodia to see the temples, right? It is The temples are, if I'm not wrong, about 1,000 to 1,500 years old. But the tradition of Cambodian, or rather Khmer pottery is nearly 2,500 to 3,000 years old. So it is a tradition far older than the temples itself. And that's something that I learned after I met this local potter lady, and we became very good friends. And if your listeners want to check it out, you can check out Angkor Pottery Center. You can just Google it.
Do you remember her name?
Paruth. The manager of Paruth, Paruth.
Paruth. Oh, okay.
So she's the owner of the Angkor Pottery Center, and she does workshops, short term as well as long term. But the reason why I brought her up is because when I visited her, she had, if I'm not wrong, 3 adult dogs and a bunch of puppies. And I'm talking about a house with a yard and everything. So it's a property suitable for multiple dogs to kind of hang out. And there's a garden behind, and there's a porch in front, so plenty of space for the dogs to run and relax. And these dogs, when we stopped there and we saw the signboard, and we stopped there to try out the pottery. At first, the dogs came and they barked, but when the owner Paruth, when she acknowledged that we are tourists who are just here to check out and do some pottery, the dogs already took cue from Paruth and stopped barking at us, and they were just kind of sniffing us, hanging around us, which is something that dogs normally do. That's how they say hello. They will sniff your butt if they have to, and that's how they say hello to each other, right? They sniff each other's butts. Humans probably not butts. Yeah, you don't know this. So dogs, if 2 dogs are meeting for the first time, it's not like they will lick each other immediately. They will smell each other's
I thought it was only for mating period.
No, and it's got nothing to do with mating. It just so happened that for you and me as humans, like, butt is a very disgusting and dirty part of the body. But for dogs, I'm not a dog expert, but I suppose for dogs, it's like, yeah, it's part of my body. It's where there's a lot of pheromones, a lot of smell. There's a ID there, so I can ID a new dog. If I am a dog, I can ID a new dog by smelling his or her butt. So I've seen that very often in dogs.
There's a similar tradition in Yakutia. You know Yakutia?
Okay.
Yakutsk. No. It's actually it's part of Russia, but Yakutian people are very different from Russian people. I mean, they all look Asian. Yeah, they have Asian features, and they have one of the most ancient languages. And in their culture also, when 2 people meet each other, they smell each other. So for example, there's this person, then they don't kiss, they smell each other like 3 times, kind of like the face, but it's not for just everybody. Like, if it's a random person, no, it's usually between friends, between family, or I don't know, people that really have good connection with each other. That's how they greet each other.
But is it a kiss, or is it a smell, or is it like a cheek to cheek? Because I was in Turkey,
it's a smell. Yeah, in Turkey it's a kiss. You kiss 3 times. Actually, same in my culture in Kyrgyzstan. Also, you kiss 3 times, but you kiss 3 times among women. So women kiss each other. In Turkey, it could be even men actually.
Yes.
Like for example, in Arabic countries, men kissing each other, it's normal, but here it's not. So usually it's only between women. But yeah, in Yakutia, I was really surprised actually. I have a friend from Yakutia, and once we went to the bar, and then I thought she was going to kiss me, so I just put my cheek, and she was like smelling me, and it was like really kind of, I don't know.
So you could hear her sniff. You could hear her sniff.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That.
And then she was like, "Oh, we do it only for the really good friends." I was like, "Oh, okay." But it was really funny.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of this kind of awkward, and I was the one who was awkward. My very first trip to Turkey, that wasn't a solo travel. I was a student, and I went to Turkey for a study trip, and it was thankfully it was thanks to our local guide there, and this guide was not like the guides who take you to shops and make you force you to or emotionally force you to buy things. This was a genuine guide who really wanted to show the tradition and history of Turkey to us, and they took us to a local family. A lot of tour guides do that. They take you to a local family. Even in India, in Delhi, they do that.
Oh, okay.
And when they took, the guide already warned us that in the Turkish culture, it's very normal for not for men and women, but for men and men to give two or three kisses. I can't
Three
remember.
kisses. Yeah, yeah.
Three kisses, and women to do three kisses. And we were like, okay, that's cool. We'll be ready. And then when I was the first one to. I was just like, we were standing in a row of sorts,
Yeah.
and I was just so happened that I was the first person to greet the host, the gentleman host of the family. And when he came to kiss me,
You were like, I'm ready.
no, that sounds wrong. He didn't come to kiss me. When he came to greet me, I did this. Whoa! And I actually said, whoa. I know I was so embarrassed. I don't know whether it was my hidden homophobia or whatever it is. I feel so embarrassed. I'm not homophobic. I'm just kidding. But it was just like that was culture shock in all its shape and form. Despite the fact that a travel guide had already told me that this is how people greet each other. So just don't be alarmed. And I was still alarmed. It was
What
very.
did you do later? You were like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, please.
No, I was like, whoa. And then, of course, we had a good laugh. And then the host must have seen like this stupid guy is freaked out. So I will just slowly greet him. So he just like slowly greeted me.
No, it
And
wasn't
after
a
that was.
passionate kiss. It was just regular.
It was. If it was passionate, I would my freaking out would be justified. If it was passionate, my freaking out would be justified, but it wasn't. It was a normal. It was a tradition of the Turkish people. Yeah, even in even in Turkey, I want to give a shout out to. Oh my gosh, I forget the name of this travel buddy. His name was, and I'm talking about 2009. This local person who we met in an evening, and then the next day he actually took me out to take me on a walking tour of sorts in around the Hagia Sophia. His name was Hussein or something. Shucks, this is like 13 years ago, so I can't remember. Hussein or something I can't remember. A young chap back then. I mean, even I was young then, and that was if I want to say, maybe that was one of my first few experience with a travel buddy who I just happened to meet, and I call this person a travel buddy because even though he was a local, I think his motivation was just to show his city. He was from Istanbul, and then he had so many recommendations. You should go here, you should go to Izmir, you should go to Cappadocia and whatever places. And of course, that wasn't our plan. And I'm very grateful to that person because there are two ways to see Hagia Sophia or any kind of, a beautiful monument. One way is that you go and you take pictures, and if you're lucky, you have done a bit of reading about the history of that temple or that mosque or that building. And the other way is that you are sharing that moment with someone, whether it's for the beauty of the building or whether it's for the history. So I am a crazy history buff. So very recently I saw on Netflix this show called Ottoman. Yeah. So it was basically
Turkish.
Yeah. So it was about the Ottoman Empire, and all my memories of the Hagia Sophia and of that border crossing from Istanbul to Alexandria, all those came flashing back. Yeah, it's just very, very beautiful memories. I can't imagine that Hagia Sophia experience being even half as good if that person, I want to call him Hussein. I'm so stupid, I forgot his actual name, can't remember properly. But I'm very grateful that I I happened to meet him and he took time out. No money transaction, no nothing. I think we probably just shared a coffee or meal together, and that was it. I'm not really in touch with this person because this was before I joined Facebook, I believe. Yeah, so
Well,
yeah,
it was
it
13
was pretty
years
cool.
ago, it's quite a while ago.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
How about you? Do you
Oh,
have
well.
any travel buddy stories?
Well, actually, I have a lot. Usually, because there is a difference, between traveling as a solo male traveler and solo female traveler. In some countries, actually, you almost like have to have a travel buddy as a solo female traveler. Well, and mostly it's for security purposes. For example, well, I'll start with my most recent trip.
Sure.
So for example, as I was hitchhiking in Caucasus, which was last
Sorry, where were you?
Caucasus.
The
So
Caucasus Mountains, right?
Yeah, so I traveled to Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia. And like for example, it was actually my hitchhiking trip, and I was hitchhiking in all three countries, and I felt really safe in Azerbaijan and Armenia. So I didn't feel like I need like a travel buddy, but I mean, it's not only for security purposes, of course. Like I also met a really cool person from Moscow who I hitchhiked with most of Armenia. It was a really fun trip. She was much more rougher than me, and I learned a lot from her, actually. I remember one of the nights, actually, we had to camp because there was no hostel, no nothing. But the problem is she had a tent only for one person. So can you imagine us sleeping, both of us, in one tent? Like I couldn't lay down, so I was sleeping all night like on my sideway, and
it was so small that the two of you could not sleep on your backs.
It was so small, and I'm a little bit claustrophobic, so it was actually really hard on me. But anyways, I survived, and then the next morning I was like, oh my god, this is my first and last night in a one tent, one person tent with two people sleeping. So yeah, it was quite an experience. But like, for example, among the three countries, I found Georgia to be not very safe, actually. As a solo female traveler, not even hitchhiking, even taking public transport, I got harassed a few times by local men. And usually who were like twice older than I was. So like you would never really, like, I didn't really think in the beginning, like, I was like, oh, because usually like they start talking, asking about where I'm from. I say Kyrgyzstan, and they're like, oh, I feel so nostalgic because I used to serve in Kazakhstan. And then, I support the topic, and I want to share with something from my country, how it changed and stuff. But then, it's kind of when it changes the direction, then I found myself, actually, I traveled almost for 1 month in Georgia, and I found myself a little reserved, actually, by the time I finished my traveling in Georgia. So I don't know, maybe it was just my experience, but over there, I remember that after some time, I really started actively looking for travel buddies. Not only for hitchhiking, but also I did some hiking. It was a 3-day hike. And, for hiking, I always, like, you should never, anywhere in the country, even the safest country, you should never go alone. You should always find a travel buddy. So, I was looking for a travel buddy, and I found a few, actually. We had a really good time. There were 3 people. So 4 of us on this trek. So, yeah, in general, I had a good time.
But this is something that it's quite intuitive that as a solo female traveler, the value of finding a travel buddy, especially for a sense of security, is far more. I can imagine even for. I mean, I cannot speak for a sexual minority, but if someone is LGBT, and if their mannerism of the way they look is different, they may also feel the same vulnerability. I'm not sure. And intuitively it makes sense, but it's a double-edged sword then, because as a straight male solo traveler, even if I, let's say, find a travel buddy and this person turns out to be a total asshole, and this person turns out to be really mean or really bad, I would still not feel very threatened. I think I would still be cautious. But for women, if you, let's say, regardless of whether you find a female travel buddy or male travel buddy, but if this person turns out to be really awful, then what are you going to do? Then the next, let's say you say adios to this travel buddy. Will you dare to find a new travel buddy, or will you be like, no, I'm better off alone now?
I think it depends. It's yeah, it depends. I think on the experience, like on the how bad, how bad was your experience with that person? And I don't know. For example, let's say that if he was just I don't know, an asshole all the time, like complaining, like I don't know, like not sharing the same mindset of in terms of activities, because you didn't know, right, what would be the interest, like let's say that you didn't clarify before. So in that case, I think it's fine. Like you can move on and just find another travel buddy just beforehand. You can ask, oh, what are your interests? What do you want to do? And then just see how the person relates to the other people around you. But for example, let's say that you found a travel buddy who maybe harassed you. In that case, it could be harder, I think, to move on and just find another travel buddy right away.
Right.
So you probably need some time to kind of reflect on yourself, maybe spend some time by yourself, and then find a travel buddy. But I mean, even in that case, even if that happened to you, I think still it's not a good idea to go trekking or hiking alone. So if it would happen to me, for example, maybe I would change my plans. First, do things that I could do by myself, and then find a travel buddy who I could go hiking with or trekking with. Yeah.
It's very interesting. Like when you told me we're going to be talking about travel buddies, I was wondering if you would also be open to listen to some horror stories of with travel buddies, because travel buddies are not always like you can find a travel buddy maybe on day one, it's okay. I'll give you an example. So in the same trip, after Kyrgyzstan, I went to the Xinjiang province of China, because Xinjiang province and Kyrgyzstan, they share a border, right? And when I was there, I found a travel buddy, and this lady, I think she was around my age, also in 30s, and she was traveling from the east, one of the eastern parts of China. So if you're familiar with China, then you will know that it's the eastern and southern parts that are richer, more densely populated.
Was she a local or a traveler?
She was a local. She
okay.
She was a local from China, but traveling to Xinjiang.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she was traveling to Xinjiang province also for the first time, and it just so happened that I was decent in my Mandarin, but her English was far better than my Mandarin for sure. So we ended up communicating in English. And on the first day, she helped me navigate around. What's the name of the city? Oh my gosh. What's the capital of Xinjiang? Urumqi. No, not Urumqi. Yeah. The other one. The other famous place in. I'm so bad with.
Oh, it's not famous. No, Kyrgyzstan is not famous.
Urumqi. Oh my gosh. Okay, never mind. Let's just move on. I will sure. Google it, or you can help me Google it while I'm sharing my story. So when we were in this, oh my gosh, now I can't even get over it.
Kashgar.
Kashgar, yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Thank God. So Kashgar is a historical city because it was a major trade spot in the land Silk Route, right? So that's why. So when she was there, she helped me kind of navigate the markets, and I think in Xinjiang, at least the merchants, they speak Mandarin because a lot of their customers are the Han Chinese who speak Mandarin in Xinjiang, and so on the very first day it was okay, but then towards the evening, we went to sit down in a local eatery, and the food was so delicious. And I never go to proper restaurants. I always like to go to the street eatery because it's just, even if the food is bad, at least you have tasted something authentic, right? But in my experience, probably 99 out of 100 times the food has been awesome. Not even good, it has been awesome. And we went there, and I found this lady to be like amazingly rude to the local staff about the service time, and about, I don't know what she was complaining about. She was basically complaining about everything. And then I found that this is a pattern, that she was respectful and polite to me, as well as to the other travelers when in the guest house. But when it came to interacting with the local merchants, that she was very rude. Even to the hostel staff, she was very rude. And then eventually I kind of started getting that negative vibe. And then eventually I told her, I think I made some lame excuse that, oh, actually, I've kind of changed my plans. I'm going to be leaving Kashgar, and I'm going to be somewhere. But I wasn't leaving the guest house. I wasn't leaving Kashgar. So she still saw me around. I know that was also rude, because I literally lied to her face that, I'm going to leave Kashgar. But basically, I didn't want to. It was just short of telling her that I kind of don't want to hang out with you anymore, because you're a mean person, and it may be okay for us to hang out and see the streets or whatever, but I kind of don't get a good vibe from you. So yeah. Then the rest of the trip, I had no other travel buddies, which is completely fine. Yeah. So that was one of the few horrible travel buddies that I've had. I have a few more stories, and I'm happy to share more. I share with you. This podcast is turning out to be more about Kyrgyzstan, but why not? It's a beautiful country. My first travel buddy in Kyrgyzstan was this 62-year-old gentleman, 62 or 63. I'm talking about 2 years ago, so now he's maybe 64, 65. My dad is 68, by the way, so he's close to my dad's age. He was my first travel buddy in Kyrgyzstan. We were dorm mates in Apple Hostel in Chokonata in Kyrgyzstan.
Oh, what's his name?
I would prefer you don't ask me about anything about names, whether it's people or places.
Okay, sure.
I forget his name. No, because, and I am not in touch with him because obviously he did not have Facebook. I think it's not to say that like my dad and mom have Facebook, but he did not have Facebook. He was from like a generation of, I don't want to say hippie, but he was a very cool, very chilled out. I dearly, dearly miss him. I wish I could keep in touch with him, but he didn't even have a phone number, by the way. And he was, all I know is that he was from England, and he was 62, 63 years old. And every morning we will kind of go down to grab breakfast together. And on our way to grab breakfast, because there's a big fat apple tree in the middle of the Choponata property, and we would pick an apple from there. And I'm talking about, if your viewers are watching my hands, the apple would be this big. I'm not joking. This would
and
be
it's
this
natural. It doesn't have any hormones.
Yeah, there's no,
Yeah.
it's really as natural and organic as it can be.
Mhm.
And we would take a chunk of that apple and like on our way, but like pretty much finish half our breakfast. And this gentleman, I'm not very tall myself. He was shorter than me, and he was much skinnier than me. So he did not have much appetite anyway. So his breakfast would be just that free apple from that tree, from that beautiful tree.
Mhm.
And I contrast him, and he was very nice, very beautiful stories about life in the UK. And I think he was one of those people who was very sick of the capitalism and materialism that he experienced as a Westerner. And I contrast his experience with this lady from, I think she was either from Canada or France, and I can't remember where. She was French speaking, so that's why I'm confusing whether she was from France or from the Quebec part of Canada.
Mhm.
And also very nice. She was very polite, very fun to hang out with. But one of the most annoying things about her was that every morning she would come to our men's dormitory and ask, does anybody have toothpaste? Does anybody have shampoo? Does anybody have soap?
Oh.
Every single day. And the first few days, of course, we helped out because that's what you do when you're solo traveling, like when you're with other solo travelers.
Right.
But I kind of knew this person would not make a good travel buddy for me because this person is being cheap for no reason. And I don't need to tell you, you are Kyrgyz yourself. You know that if you're coming from a country, especially from a rich country, you sure as hell can afford a packet of shampoo or toothpaste. From a convenience store, you can buy those sachets, right? So
Right.
it wasn't about that she genuinely did not have money or whatever. I think she was just being like cheap for no reason. And I'm
Mhm.
not one to say that you should not save money. You should totally save money. Doesn't matter what age or what your
Right.
financial
But
status
not at the expense of others, right?
is. Right. And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to hang out with this person because she's fun, but I imagine that if we go to a restaurant and she will probably order just one chai and she'll be like, no, I'm not going to eat anything. And then she's going to eat from my plate. She's going to eat my shopo and I'm not going to be happy about that. So I was like, I'm not going to hang out with this person. But I hung out with the 62-year-old gentleman. Yeah. Yeah, there's for every good travel buddy, I can also tell you about a horrible travel buddy. Yeah.
Right.
I go, with your permission, I have one more story if I can about a
Oh,
travel
sure.
buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is my first trip to the eastern part of India, and there's the city called Kolkata. It has a
It's
big
where
poverty.
Mithun Chakraborty is from.
It's where what?
Mithun Chakraborty is from. He's from Calcutta. Do you know him?
Oh, sorry. No.
Mithun Chakraborty. He's an Indian Bollywood actor. Like, as I was growing up, I was like a fan of
Oh.
Bollywood movies. And the reason I asked you about
Ah.
singing and dancing, because actually that's my favorite part in Indian movies.
Oh, so he's from.
He's from Calcutta, yeah.
Okay.
He's very
So
famous.
he's very.
He's very famous. Do you know the movie Jimmy Sing? No,
Nope.
it's like, he sings like, I'm a disco dancer. Dun,
I've
dun,
heard
dun.
that song, by the way. I
Yeah,
have
yes.
heard that song.
He's in that movie.
Oh, okay. These must be old movies, right?
Really
80s,
old.
90s, 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my movie experience is only from the late 90s. Yeah. Oh, early 90s. Yeah. So
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
the reason why I went there is because the Missionaries of Charity, which was established by Mother Teresa, is there, right? And on another trip, I met a travel buddy who was from China, who had been to Missionaries of Charity for volunteering her time there. And she recommended me that if you go to eastern part of India, spend some time there, it'll be a pretty awesome experience. And it was. And this is one of my most memorable travel buddy experiences there. A lot of the people that come there are devout Catholics. So I don't follow any religion. And Missionaries of Charity is a Catholic institution. So there was this lady from France and a very devout Catholic, and she was there to volunteer. And every morning I would see her that she would wake up, and every morning at around 5 a.m. She would wake up and she would go to this tea stall, drink a cup of tea, and eat some cookies and walk to the place where to volunteer. I would wake up much later. I would go at 7 or 8 a.m. and then I would volunteer there. And I'm not sure how either I requested her that if I can kind of tag along with her. And eventually I started waking up also at 5 a.m. We would have chai together, a hot cup of tea, very nice early in the morning. And this was like December, so it was a bit chilly there. And we would go there, we would walk there. And then eventually I started joining her for the prayers as well. Not that I have any clue about what the prayer is about, but just for the experience of finding some peace in the morning. So you wake up early because you've slept on time, and then you have a nice cup of chai, and then you're in an environment where there's peace and serenity. It's a beautiful experience. Then that is another energy in you to volunteer for the rest of the day. And one of the days our job was, and it is the nuns in the missionaries who direct
Oh.
you. This is what your assignment is. So you don't just willy nilly go there and do what you want. You must follow their instructions, or you'll be thrown out.
Can you eat while you're praying, or like?
Can you eat? Probably not inside the prayer hall. I don't know.
Like, I mean, not inside the prayer hall, but for example, in some southeastern countries, like you stay in a prayer room, you pray, and you don't eat at all, like for 1 week, 2 weeks, or for 1 month. Oh, sorry, you eat once a day at 5 a.m., but you don't talk to anybody.
Oh no, that it wasn't so intense. It wasn't like a meditation thing. We still had our normal meals there, and we paid for our meals. And one afternoon, our job was to peel peas, green peas. So we had to pick them from a pod, and there was a sacks and sacks, maybe 50 kilos worth of peas. And the whole afternoon we just sat there, and she was sharing about her experience as a Catholic. And back then, because I'm a person who doesn't follow any religion, I don't despise, I don't, or rather not despise, I don't have any negative feelings about any one religion, but I also wasn't like a big fan. But she shared her perspective about how it drives her values, how she thinks about her family, about the community, about coming to India to volunteer and everything, all because of her faith. And it really gave me a very unique and different perspective. So this was a travel buddy who was special to me, not because of anything we did as travelers together, but it was a very beautiful experience meeting someone new who couldn't be more different from me. Different culture, different nationality, different faith, different values. I wasn't married back then. She was married. I don't think she had kids, but she was a married woman. And just like listening to someone who has a very, very different perspective from you while peeling peas, which is quite meditative. If you do that for 4 hours, you're in a trance of peeling peels and like having. That was a very, very. It's something that it's like a movie in my head that keeps playing again and again, because I fondly remember those days with that travel buddy. What was her name? Was her name Laura? Or no, not Laura. Laura is my other friend who is also from Canada, Quebec. Anyway. Yeah. So I forget her name.
So how many kilos of peas did you guys peel?
I want to say it was about 50 kilos, because I remember there were 5
kilos.
stacks.
You finished
50.
everything. Wow, that's a lot of work. How long did it take you?
I think we spent the whole afternoon there, just the two of us. So we were sitting. We were sitting in Kalighat. Kalighat is the home of the dying. So people who have very few days or few months left in their life, the missionary there will take care of them, just give them love and kindness for their last lap in their life. And we were on the highest level, I want to say, where the kitchen was, and we were helping them peel the peas for the dinner or something. It was a very special experience. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, sounds really.
Yeah.
Cool.
So anyway, I realized that most of my travel buddies have been women. This is weird, and it's not out of choice, because I think I have not found any travel buddies through apps or whatever. I have always found them serendipitously. Just happen to meet them, happen to hang out with them.
At the hostel?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it has almost every time been at the hostel. Yeah. Hostel or guest house. Yeah. Depends. Yeah.
Well, you look like a trustworthy person. You look smart.
Looks can be deceiving.
Plus, you look smart.
But I'm curious, right? I think I'm sure it's not okay. Even if a person's face may seem trustworthy, but like after 1 or 2 hours, especially for women, I would imagine women have a heightened sense of alertness about what is wrong with this, especially if it's a male. What is wrong with that person? But I'm just wondering, like, for a solo female traveler, if you happen to meet a travel buddy who happens to be male, like, how do you go about? Will you treat that person the same way you would treat a solo female travel buddy? Sorry, would you treat that person similar to a female travel buddy, or would you be a bit more cautious with a male travel buddy?
Mm-hmm. Actually, in my case, like when it comes to travel buddies, I actually always had a good experience. Yeah, it's like, I mean, if you are talking about travelers, like I had, like if it's a local travel buddy, I had a few not good experiences, but if it's like a traveler, same like me, then I don't know. I always had a good experience actually, and it's just I think instinctively I just trust from the very beginning, and I don't know. It's yeah, and it's in my choice. It's like I think it's half and half. That sometimes I have solo female travelers, like as a travel buddy. Sometimes I have male travelers. Maybe a little bit more of male travelers, because I also sometimes think of, well, actually, of the security, for example. But yeah, in general, it's yeah, a bit more of male travelers, I think, as a travel buddy.
But even if that's the case, I suppose what I'm wondering is that from a solo female traveler's viewpoint, even if, let's say, you go out and if you are looking for travel buddies, you would prefer that they are male travel buddies for a better sense of security. Let's say that's the reason.
For better sense. Actually, yeah. Actually, I do remember. I had a not really good, but it was okay kind of experience with one male travel buddy. So I also met him at the hostel. He was from China, I think. And I actually didn't ask him to go with me. I was just usually sometimes when I'm in the hostel, if I'm bored, I just ask, does anybody want to join me? I'm going here or there. But in this case, this guy, he asked me, what are your plans? I was like, I'm just gonna go to this church place. And he was like, I haven't been there. Can I go with you? I was like, yeah, sure. So we went together. But as we are walking, like I don't know, he acted like he was a macho, like we are walking, and then like people probably think that we are a couple because we both look Chinese, and that was in Iran. Actually Isfahan. So we are walking, but the thing is, like, when he sees girls alone, he's like, hi, like he's waving at them, looking, like smiling and everything, and
to the local women.
For local women. And surprisingly, I was so surprised that local women would smile him back. They smile him back. Some of them, they start talking to him. I was like, wow, this is such a conservative country, but the girls don't seem to be very conservative, because I don't know if it would happen, for example, here in Kyrgyzstan. Okay, I'm talking about Kyrgyzstan again. And then if some foreigner guy would, I don't know, if he would smile, like, for me, it kind of would look like creepy, so I was like, are you okay? But in Iran, yes, like all the women that he smiled to, they all smile him back. And actually, one of them, she started talking with him. They had really good conversation. So she kept looking at me. I was like, you guys, take your time, like, I don't know, exchange your contacts, we are friends, I wanted to make sure that I don't spoil anything. So yeah, and then they exchanged the contacts. She invited him to her house, and her dad was there also, like, and that was really surprising. Like, in my culture, for example, especially if I would be with my dad, and then if I meet another foreigner, okay, let's say that we start talking, I would never invite that person to my house. And if my father is near me, I mean, I would just probably say, okay, let's exchange the contacts and keep in touch or something, but not I would not invite to my house. So for me, it was very unusual. And then because he acted like that all the time, I was like, oh my God, this is so annoying, like if he did it once or twice, because all the time smiling around, and I don't know, like, I'm okay, but it's uncomfortable. So next time when I wanted to go somewhere, I didn't tell him. I was like, oh, I'm just here, but then I go somewhere to explore. So
You
actually,
know this.
yeah, I just told you that I'm always direct, but I guess I'm not always, because I remember that guy, and as we were talking, I remembered another woman. She was from Italy, I think, that also was my travel buddy while I was traveling in Kyrgyzstan. And yeah, actually, for her also, I didn't use a direct method to get rid of her. I just told her that, yeah, it's sorry, my travel plans changed, so I'm just gonna do something different because I didn't want to travel with her anymore. So yeah.
It's I I have a simple explanation for that travel buddy who you met in Iran. I would label him with his permission, with his unsolicited permission. I would label him as a social butterfly. So I have a travel buddy. Shout out to Ben, who is from Norway, if he may be listening to this podcast.
Okay.
Ben is we would travel together India. This is in 2010, and he would do exactly the same. Not to like women in particular, but whether it's men, women, local, old people, children, he would wave to them. He would say hello, and because he has a very interesting face, so he's a Scandinavian. I think he's part Scandinavian bloodline.
Like
So of
teenagers
course
tall.
so he's fairly tall, and he has curly hair, he has a sharp nose. So he is exotic in a country like India. And
Okay.
I have had that experience in countries like, especially in China, where people think I'm exotic. So local people want to take pictures with me. Uh, so uh, uh, so that was what was happening with him in India as well. And I also was like, because we were still new travel buddies back then. Now I know him for more than 10 years already. And I also found it very surprising that how come this guy is always game to chit chat with the local people, and he's always willing to take pictures. If the local people in China, when the local people asked that, can I take a picture with you? I would really hesitate because I was a bit uncomfortable my picture going in someone else's social media or whatever. I was not very okay with that, but he was okay. So I kind of find that there are these people who are social butterflies. So you can be their travel buddy, but you are probably not their only travel buddy. So they need like multiple travel buddies at any one point of time. And
Right.
I kind of also admire their spirit to like, yeah. Sorry, yes,
It's
what do you want
different.
to say?
It's different between a guy who is smiling only to young girls and then flirting with them, with
Ah,
the guy who is smiling to everybody, whether it's a child, a man, or woman, just smiling to everybody.
right,
There is a
right.
difference, and even the type of smile is different. So yeah,
I was smiling there.
really.
I have a story similar to this. So when we were in Iran, I met this friend of mine who was already studying Farsi language in Iran. And when we were in, I think we were in Isfahan. Isfahan. Where's the? Okay, anyway, let's say we were in Isfahan, right? And we were going from our guest house to the Pink Mosque. It's called the Pink Mosque.
Oh
I think
yeah,
that's in.
yeah, yeah.
It's in Isfahan, right?
It's in
Yeah.
Shiraz. It's in Shiraz.
Shiraz, sorry, yeah. So
Yeah.
we were going there, and there were these two guys who were from, I want to say they were from Egypt. They were very nice guys, and they were very polite. But for some reason, so by the way, I was a bit touristy on that day. I really wanted to see the Pink Mosque just when it opens because it is very popular. There's a lot of crowd that comes in.
That's what I did
Right?
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you go really early, if you're one of the first few people, you can really enjoy the mosque well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's these guys, and my friend is like, she's a very pretty lady. So she's tall, and she has like hazel eyes, very pretty altogether. And I think the two Egyptian guys, they were like fascinated with her. So they wanted to, so they were walking with us, but they were chit-chatting. Now, when you chit-chat and walk, of course you will slow down. And I was like, look, I have no horse in this race. So why am I being slowed down? So I told my friend, Sumaya, if it's okay with you, I will walk a bit faster and I'll see you at the mosque. Then she's like, no, it's okay, we'll walk together. And then I just got like really frustrated. And then those Egyptian guys, they were sorry, I don't want to stereotype all Egyptian guys, okay? But those two guys who were very fascinated with my friend, they would just not stop talking to her. And all the way that we were sitting in the pink mosque, and at least I wanted to sit in silence and just admire the mosaic windows there, because that's what it's gorgeous there, it's beautiful. And they would just like continue chatting with her and So I was, you know what I did? I was very rude. So I did not ask anybody. I got up from there, I moved to another place and I sat down. Then one of these guys dared to
It was
come
in a
to me.
restaurant?
No, in the pink mosque itself, sitting on the carpet.
Oh, but it's okay. I mean, you just moved from there to another place.
So I moved from another from where they were sitting to another place, and then one of these guys, they came up and he came to me and he said, "Are you okay? I hope we did not offend you or whatever." And I was just like, "Can you just leave me alone?" I just want to be. And this is for people assume that I'm an extrovert because I like to express my thoughts, but I am not very comfortable in big groups. I would much travel rather just hang out with one person, Igul, rather than Igul plus three other people. I'm not very comfortable in that setting. And I was just like, just leave me alone. I don't want to hang out with you. I just want to admire this mosque.
Right.
And that guy would just, so eventually I had to tell him, please just leave me alone. I don't want to hang out with you. So I had to be so rude and straightforward with him. But because he pushed me to the edge, and I'm not qualifying that person as a travel buddy, but this person was forcing himself on at least us to be travel buddies, and that was not a pleasant experience. I think my ideal travel buddy, there's no such thing as a travel buddy, ideal travel buddy, but my ideal travel buddy is someone who respects my boundaries, who is happy to hang out with me tomorrow, and totally fine, doesn't take it personally if I don't hang out with him or if I don't hang out with her the next day and then we hang out 2 days later. I think as long as you and I can be solo travelers while hanging out once in a while, if it is, let's say, to share cost of a taxi ride or for or to share information, like during the World Nomad Games, I would bug Elaine all the time that, okay, what is this? When is this? So yeah. So that kind of travel buddies I really cherish. But those who have this very high expectation that you must always hang out with me, yeah, that kind of travel buddy I don't appreciate. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine. It must be worse for women, right? Imagine if there's a male travel buddy who's just like, okay, I go, let's hang out. I go, let's go here. I go.
Yeah, it could be annoying. Yeah, that's true.
Has that happened to you?
Well, now that I think about, like, I cannot think of a moment on the top of my head. Actually, yes. Yeah, I can think of actually. Yeah. And it's funny that that person, is like, okay. The thing is, like, so I'm like about this trekking which I did in Georgia. So yes, I actually, when I shared with my plans, and he was actually one of the guests at the hostel, he was like, oh yeah, I haven't been there too, I want to go too. I was like, okay. So we did this trek, and then after the trek was over, I was like, okay, it's over, so I'm gonna continue on my own. But he was like, oh, where are you going? I was like, oh, I think I'm going here. I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to go there too. It's like, well, actually, I'm not sure yet, so I kind of, changed up, and still, the person like kept messaging me for another few months saying, oh, where are you now, and he was like, actually, I'm thinking about going to Africa next year. Do you want to go with me? I don't know, like, yeah, it was kind of annoying. So finally, I was like, are you okay? Like, calm down, It's like, I don't know my plans, and if I do, I'm not planning to go with anybody.
You said that to him?
Well, not that direct, but kind of, I did ask him if he was okay, because some messages got really weird. So I had to ask him, like, I still wanted to because I actually, he came back to Kyrgyzstan a few times. He stayed at the hostel, like, I don't know, 3 times, maybe 4 times. I don't remember. So I wanted to be like respectful, but yeah, also to keep the distance. So yeah, that's the experience I had.
I want to ask you, right? So I think there's a fairly legitimate perception that as solo travelers, solo male travelers are always on the lookout for hookups, so they will tend to message or find or have a conversation with solo female travelers. And it doesn't help that there are apps and platforms out there that make life easier for such creeps to do this kind of stalking and this kind of filtering that I only want to speak to women or connect with women. But what I suppose what I want to ask is, have you personally experienced or have you heard of like really horror stories where it is between two solo female travelers where things were, it's not just about annoyance, but things are like really got bad between two solo female travelers? Have you experienced that or have you heard of that?
Yes, I have. Between two solo female travelers.
Yeah.
I actually, first I was like, oh, I didn't have any bad experience, but actually I did have this experience. So the one that I shared with you before was this Chinese guy, and then with another solo female traveler I had, she was from Italy, I think. But at that time, it was in 2014, so that was 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, I just started working in tourism, and then as my first solo trip, I wanted to travel around Isikul Lake, and I took my sleeping bag, and at that time, I didn't even think about having a tent. I was like, okay, I'll just sleep in the beach in my sleeping bag. It was so crazy, but I don't know. I just wanted to go wild, and I didn't think about a tent. So yeah, and then this Italian woman who was staying at the hostel, she was like, oh, can I come with you? I was like, yeah, sure, let's go together. And and then we were traveling, and then it happened that, I don't know, I met this guy who started messaging me on who messaged me on WhatsApp saying, hey, how are you? I was like, oh, I'm okay. I'm going to travel around Isikul. And he was local, by the way. And he was like, oh, can I come along? I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? And then he had a car. So he drove, and I think we met him in Krakow. So once I met him, I was like, okay, you have a car, so we're gonna buy the food. So the Italian lady and then me, we went for shopping. We bought some food for our trip, and we loaded in the car, and then we drove to, it was over like above Karakol in Jetogus. Like Jetogus is a valley. Actually, past Jetogus, there's a valley called Kokjayik. It's a very beautiful valley. There's a flower valley there as well. So we went there, and then the first night, the guy had a tent. And then he was like, oh, are we gonna share the tent? So he asked me. I was like, no, actually, I don't feel like sharing a tent with you. I said, I'm just gonna sleep in the yurt. And well, but before that, I actually had vodka, and I think I didn't drink vodka. I don't remember now. Yeah, but the Italian lady and him.
If you don't remember, you probably did have.
I was very sober, and at that time, I didn't drink much. Like, I mean, if I would just drink a little, I would get drunk. So I think I really didn't drink because I didn't want to get drunk, and it was in the mountains. But the Italian woman and him, they drank the whole bottle of vodka, and then he was like, okay, I have my tent here, and he was like, let's share a tent to me. And I was like, no, think I'm gonna sleep in a yurt. So the Italian lady and me, we left. He stayed alone, like on the pasture. But then, when we woke up the next day, he was gone.
Oh.
Like, he left, and he didn't tell us anything. So I left some of my things in his car, but anyway. I mean, it was really small things like sunglasses that actually took me a while to get them back. Like, I was like, I'll pay for the shipping, just send them back to me. And then when I shared with this Italian lady, she was like, oh, it's because you didn't sleep with this guy.
Oh
She
my
said, you
gosh.
should
What
have.
the
She said,
hell?
yeah, she told me you should have slept in the tent. She said, guys, how they think, they only think about one thing. So if you would have stayed there in that tent, then we would have a nice car. And actually had a really nice car. It was like kind of Jeep, something like that. She was like, now, we have to think about how to get out of here. And it's all because you didn't sleep in the tent. I was like,
What the hell?
yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh my God, I don't want to travel with this woman. So then, I saw some Spanish guys who were staying also in the yurt, in another yurt, and I asked them, hey guys, and they had a really big car actually. They had plenty of space. So I was like, hey guys, is it okay if you drop us off at the main road? And I think they were not really happy. Like we haven't talked to them at all, and it's just I came out of the blue, and I was like, can we share?
Right.
But eventually they were like, okay, that's fine. We will drop you off to the nearest like highway stop. And we're like, okay,
Right.
that's perfect. So yeah, and then I told the lady, okay, we can go down to the main road, and from there on, I think I'm gonna travel on my own because I don't know what my travel plans are gonna be and where I wanna stop. And I told her like that, and then maybe she realized, I don't know, but she said, oh, I also have a stomach ache, so I'll just stay somewhere on the road. So yeah, that's how we parted. I kept traveling on. So yeah.
Oh, I wish she may have. Oh my gosh, that was not very nice of her because
Yeah, she was
you
much
can.
older than I am actually. So 6 years ago, I was 24, and she was at that time she was in like mid 30s, close to 40.
Because you can think that way, like nobody's going to stop you from thinking these thoughts, but to say it out loud and asking another woman that, oh, because you did not
Yeah,
agree to this
exactly.
man's weird demand.
I was actually also surprised that well, also she told me that, oh, now that if you're not traveled together, like you speak local, I don't speak local language, what's gonna happen to me? I was actually quite surprised that she was traveling alone because it seemed like she was really used to comfort, and then she was stressed out, like without traveling, without knowing the local language. So yeah, for me it was a really big surprise. Why would she do backpacking, if she was so unconfident?
But
Yeah.
I suppose the silver lining in that story is that at least you guys didn't punch each other, and you guys were like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, I don't want to do that. Okay, see ya. So, and I think that's something that I like. Some of my friends who tell me who aspire to also solo travel. I always remind them you cannot head out as a solo traveler assuming that there will always be travel buddies and will be local people to always help you, because maybe one out of two times, half the time you would have to figure things out on your own. You would have go through some inconveniences, but if you do find a travel buddy or if you do find a helpful local, then just count it as a blessing. And it depends on so many factors, right? It depends on where you are. It depends on your own demeanor. So if, let's say, I am in a bad mood and people can see that on my face or in my body language, who in their right mind is going to approach me, whether it's local or a traveler, right? So you should also be in a right frame of mind. It also cannot be like you're in a dark alley or in the mountains and then you find someone. I don't know. I am just thinking out loud. Like these are circumstances that have to come together for you to find a good travel buddy. Once you do, then it's fantastic. It can be a really memorable experience. You can be friends for life. One of my first travel buddies who I'm still in touch with, shout out to Vicky from England. We are still in touch. We just recently had a video conversation with our India travel group. And she was such a generous and such a fun travel buddy. We traveled to Malaysia together first, and then we were traveling in India. Often there were other people also, but I think like our India trip, out of the 5, I think the other 3 had already left, and then Vicky and I had another 2-3 days, I want to say, or maybe 3-4 days at the tail end of our trip. And we had really nice conversations about family, about our travels. Yeah. But that was, and how did we meet? We did not meet through any app or whatever. We actually happened to meet each other in the university. Back then, we were both students and just happened to meet, just happened to make a travel plan together and to travel to India. Yeah. So, but thank you for sharing that horror story. The reason why I asked that was because I was always wondering, as a male solo traveler, I'm always mindful that when I happen to strike a conversation or when I happen to request a solo traveler who happens to be female, if like I used to bug Elaine a lot. Shout out to Elaine, right? When I was in Kyrgyzstan for the World Nomad Games. But I was always mindful that I have to respect the fact that she's a solo female traveler. And if she, let's say, does not respond, or if her body language or if her tone is like she doesn't want to hang out, I should respect that and I should kind of move on. But I tried my luck, and I tried my luck in the sense that I would ask her, like, do you mind if walking with me to Chopon Atta, to Hippodrome or whatever, to share a taxi? And she was always willing. She was always helpful. She was taking the lead for the most part, and I would just follow her very conveniently. Yeah. So, but it seems like it's not. Yes, male travelers can make life hell for solo female travelers, but it seems like things can go terribly wrong even between two solo female travelers. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah, actually, I remember the ending now. I couldn't remember before. We went after that day. The next day, we went to the next destination together. We stayed at the same guest house. Then the next day, she said she had a stomach ache and she wanted us to stay one more day. And that was like, I was like, okay, good opportunity for me. I was like, oh, sorry, actually, I need to go. Yeah, something like that. So that's how we parted.
So if someone were to ask you, okay, I will give me the best way to get rid of a travel buddy, what would be the best way for you?
Well, to get rid of, I think it's actually better to be direct. Like, say that what you don't like and how you felt. I think it's important to let the person know how you feel, what you think, and I don't know, that your lifestyle doesn't match, like your thinking doesn't match. So it's probably better to travel alone. It's
but it's so much easier to make an excuse and say, oh, sorry, I'm not going here, see ya.
Yeah, that's easier actually. That's true. Like if you don't want to hurt feelings of the other person, if you come up with something like, oh yeah, sorry, my travel plans changed, or oh, something urgent happened, or like if you really care about the other person's feelings and if you don't want to let them know that why you did that, then probably yes. But if you do want that person know what happened, why it changed, and why you think it's not okay, then you would probably hurt the other person. But it could be also short term, in the long term, if it happens to that person like all the time, he might think, oh, maybe really I'm doing something wrong, maybe I should change my attitude. But in my culture, we have a saying that, actually it's in Russian, saying that Горбатого гроб is private, which means that the person will not change. But I actually I think people do change, as long as they have a desire to do so. What do you think? Do you think people change?
I think people do change, but it sounds very selfish of me to say this, but when I am traveling, let's say for 2 weeks, for me, other than money, time is very precious, and I don't feel any moral obligation to give feedback to a person like, oh, these are the things you can do to improve yourself as a travel buddy. Like, I couldn't care less. I'm not wishing anything ill upon anybody. I hope no matter who you are, no matter how much you hate me or how much I hate you, That doesn't matter. I hope everyone has a safe trip when you solo travel. But it is not on me to tell you if
Yeah,
you're
I
an
agree with
adult,
you. Yes, yes, I
right?
agree with you. I also never do that. I mean, why would I care? You know, the person has to figure out themselves. But I mean, in relation to yourself, for example, for example, this lady, you know, she told me that. So I think it's right if you tell that this is not okay with me, you know, like the
Hmm.
way that you treated me was not good. So I think, you know, we should part our ways. You know, that's how I mean. But of course, I would not be telling her, "Oh, you should never do like this." You know, you should change yourself. Of course,
Hmm.
I'm nobody to that person. You know, I'm not even family to
Hmm.
that person. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So you're saying that it may not be a bad thing to tell that person honestly, like, you know what, we hung out and our our interests don't match, or our values don't match, or
yeah,
our travel style doesn't match, and that's the reason why I kind of don't want to hang out with you anymore. But I go honestly, in theory it sounds very good. i'm very unlikely to do I'm very unlikely to do that as a person. I want to be honest on your podcast, and to your listeners, that I'm very unlikely to tell a person. I would I think, okay, the most quote unquote honest thing that I would do would be to say that I kind of want to be alone, and I want to go for this hike alone, or I want to go to this place alone. So it's okay with you. I would prefer to go alone. I think that's the most honest I will be. I would not go to the extent and tell anybody, oh, because you are too cheap, or because you always want to eat in restaurants and I don't want to. I don't think I would go to that extent, even though that is the truth. Yeah.
well, see here, it's a prospect. You're referring to the other person, but I would actually talk about myself. So
Mm,
I think there is a difference between you telling because you like cheap food, because you, no, I would say
mm,
actually, you know, I want to have some good food. I want to, I don't know, do something different. You know, that's why,
mm,
not because you, but because of me. You know, I
mm.
think there is a difference
Ah,
for that.
right.
But yeah, but also see, like, yeah, it actually looks like sounds good when you say, sorry, our travel interests don't match. Mm, so I'm gonna do something of my own. So I'm
Mm,
not sure also that I will do it 100% of the time, but at least, but I
mm.
think it's in general, it's a good way to say that, like, sorry, or like, yeah, our interests don't match. Or you can just, instead of saying broad, yeah, if I would say, oh, sorry, like I liked eating cheap food with you, but today I want to go to restaurant, you know, and if the person
Ah,
is used to eating cheap food all the time, you know, he would probably say, oh no, you know, like I don't want to, I like street food. Like, yeah.
hmm. I want to say, because I want to show how human I am. I got like royally rejected by a travel buddy, and again I keep thinking about Kyrgyzstan itself. So I met a fellow Singaporean solo traveler there,
Oh,
and he and I think we were in the same Marshrutska.
Marshrutka, yeah, minibus.
Marshutka, yeah, the minibus. We were in the same minibus, and we were also staying. I think both of us were staying in Apple Hostel in Bishkek, in
Mm.
Choponata, sorry. And I don't remember the exact details, but I think I know why I wanted to be his travel buddy, and I'm so selfish to say this. I wanted to be his travel buddy because he was fluent in Russian. And it would just be convenient to, and I think I had just arrived in Kyrgyzstan, so at least the Russian speaking people in Kyrgyzstan would be able to we'll be able to navigate, right?
Yeah.
And I think I asked him if he can go with me to some place, I can't remember where, maybe to a train station or something. And he said okay, sure. And then he gave me a fake number.
What? Wow.
So the reason why I'm saying he gave me so one could say, oh no, maybe Adiraj, that he gave you a wrong number by accident, right? No, but because he gave me a fake number, and the next time that we exchanged glances across the hostel, he saw me and he ignored me and he just went off. And
Okay.
I think, yeah, and I think to console myself, I think the only explanation is that he was one of the people who prefer solo travel to be really truly solo. I'm not one of those people. I think I solo travel because I want to give myself the opportunity to meet new people and not follow any one itinerary. I want to give my trip as much opportunity to find other travelers, find other locals as far as possible. I think his perspective was no, I have no interest in you. You come from the same country that I have come from, and I'm in Kyrgyzstan. Why would I talk to a fellow Singaporean? Please bugger off. I don't want to speak to you. So I got royally rejected by him. But do I have any resentment against him? No, not at all. I respect his decision. And it goes back to the same thing. I always remind myself and always share with my buddies as well that don't assume that you will always have a travel buddy, because then you are like setting up yourself for disappointment. You rather than find a friend from where you're coming from and then just don't solo travel. Yeah.
Yeah, that, and also I think that when you want to find a travel buddy, I think like thinking that, oh, this could help me, this person could help me, or he could be used. I think it's also kind of, it doesn't work most of the time because yeah, I think like maybe the person can feel it. So if you're
That's
looking
true.
for travel buddy, I think it should be like unequal, like not unequal, but I mean, you just like that person and you just want to hang out with him, not because he could be useful, but because you just want to spend time with this person, because you find this person interesting.
Maybe that's what that guy felt. He felt probably that, yeah, I want to use him as a translator in Kyrgyzstan. That's why. Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a very good point. Like, you don't find travel buddies but I think sometimes it's okay. Like, it's not really a travel buddy, but if I want to go, I remember this very clearly. We wanted to catch one of the nomad games, and we could not find any minibus that was available. So we ended up taking a taxi, but we wanted to save money. So I think we, like random travelers, we got together to share a cost of the taxi to go to that valley. What's the name of the valley where the archery?
Oh, Kyrgyzstan.
In Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, Kyrgyzstan Valley. Kyrgyzstan Valley is damn far, and taxi is not cheap there, right? So we ended up sharing a taxi among 3 or 4 people, and that to me, it's not really like, yeah, it is kind of a travel buddy, especially if you're taking a long ride. You can still strike up a good conversation, and you did share something. You share a cost, right? You did not really share experience, but at least you shared a cost. Yeah. So different shades of travel buddies.
Yeah, when it comes to sharing costs, and I often actually look for travel buddies to share costs. I usually just say it straight away, hey, I want to go here, taxi is this much, do you want to come along? So in that case, each of us, pays this much,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not so, I think that's the cultural thing. I would not be so straightforward that this is the taxi ride, I want to share the cost. I would be a bit more, but now I'm thinking from the other people.
Yeah, Europeans are very straight. And usually when I stay in a hostel, usually it's Europeans. And if I tell them, actually, they might not like me, actually, right? So if I tell them, hey, do you want to come with me? I don't look attractive enough. But if I tell them, hey, like this is, I want to go here, but taxi is this much. Like if you haven't been there, it sounds like cool. And it will be cheaper if we both of us go. Usually they're like, oh yes, whether like me or not, this is the only situation. Yeah, whether you like each other or not, to save money, you go together.
I'm thinking about my trip. So I went to my very second trip to the Philippines. I went for a diving trip. So it was just for like 4 or 5 days, and I happened to. And this is in a fairly remote island in the Philippines, in central Philippines. So I ended up renting a whole chalet for myself. It was quite fairly cheap. And in my neighborhood, there was a lady from China. And she actually, I think because we were going for dives together, not together, but we knew that we are going for dives, and it just so happened that she and I were leaving Philippines on the same day, and we were going to the airport. The airport was fairly far, so she actually approached me and she said, "My flight is this time. I want to go to the airport. If you want to share a taxi, that will be great." And I was very grateful that she already asked me, because I would be a bit hesitant to ask so straightforward that, do you want to share a taxi ride? But I'm glad
I
that
did
she
it so
was
many
straightforward.
times. Yeah, even actually, right? For example, when I come to the airport, and then if my destination is far, and for example, if I'm actually not taking, if there is no bus, then usually I always take a bus. I take the cheapest option. But for example, if taxi is the only way, for sure I'll be looking for other foreigners, people who look like foreigners. Say, hey, where are you going? Do you want to share taxi with me? You know?
Nice. So you're the kind of travel buddy that would be very good for. Again, I'm thinking of utility. But now that I think about it, even though you said something which sounded good, like you should not always think of the utility of the travel buddy, but when I'm
Unless
thinking
you're
about it,
straightforward, unless you're on the same page. Like, I mean, for example, if you think like, oh, this person could be useful inside, and you don't share with that person, then no. But even if, for example, you met this Singaporean guy, and then if you tell him straight away, oh, you speak Russian, actually, that could be so helpful, if we could go together. I don't know. If you tell him openly, I think it's okay, but not if you hide it inside and then, find it useful. But if you're on the same page, like for sharing costs as well, like if I think it inside and then like, hey, and then I try to talk to you, like being nice, and then eventually so that you could share right with me, and then I think it's also wrong. But if you let the persons know right away what your goal is, like, it's not that I find you interesting, it's just that I want to save money. That's why I'm contacting you. So the person, he's on the same page. I think it's okay.
I get your point. So it's like you don't hide your intentions, and your intention can be just like one of utility of sharing a cost.
Especially for a solo female traveler, it's a very good point, because sometimes when you, for example, you want to share a cost, and that's your main region, then you approach some guy, and then if you tell him right away why you are contacting him, it's better. But otherwise, that guy, he might think that maybe you're interested, or maybe she likes me, she finds me attractive. So like, oh yeah, and then like he might say something wrong or do something wrong. But if you tell him right away that, hey, I want to share cost, that's why I'm offering you, to go with me, then the person knows, okay, she's not interested, she just wants to share, right? Still, some people might think that you are interested, that's why you want to share the cost with him, but it's better, if it's the second purpose, not the first purpose.
Actually, it's not the second purpose. No, but that's a very good perspective. Like, especially for a solo female traveler, like you should have your intention on the table already. Why is it that you're interacting with this person? Because I am not going to hold myself to a higher standard. I think if like back in the day, if I was single, and if a random female would come and ask me, hey, you want to just hang out, I would probably read too much into it, and I would assume that she's interested in me and then wants to like sleep with me or whatever. But as opposed to I'm not saying that I'm above that. I think if I was single, I would probably read.
Right.
I would probably default read that as well.
Yeah, but of course. Especially if there are several guys and you approach just this guy and then ask him.
Right.
Of course. Yeah.
Especially if you're like, can you guys move away? I want to talk to this guy. No, but that's a very cool. Aiko, what's interesting about this podcast is, even though we are discussing like about travel buddies, and we are discussing in this universe of solo travel, but whatever we have shared today about good and bad experiences, how to approach, how to reject and everything, it really holds true even in general life. And I wonder, like I will raise my hand and with the first one to admit that when it comes to like if I'm walking around on the streets of Singapore, I am far less approachable and far less personable than when I travel. So I guess I guess what I'm saying is when I travel solo, I'm actually a nicer person. Now, whether it's because I'm in the travel mood and I'm not thinking about work or whatever, that could be a reason. But that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about traveling solo because it gives me a lot of time to introspect about myself. And when I interact with people who firstly don't care who I am or where I come from, and also don't really know me, and when I strike up a fresh conversation with someone, that really gives me a very raw sense of how am I as a human being, because they don't know my name, they don't know how much wealth I have, they don't know how educated I am. All they know
Yeah.
is they just see my face, my body language, and my
Yeah.
words. That's
Mm-hmm.
the only thing, that's the only criteria. And then you are able to tell whether if like 9 out of 10 people kind of don't want to hang out with you, don't want to interact with you, then you need to maybe look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, is it because of the way I talk? Is it my body language? I don't think you can just assume, oh, it's my hair or it's my face or whatever. I don't think people are so mean that just because you have that face, or I don't know, some people may have experienced that, I'm not sure, but at least in my experience, it has been a very good reality check that if I have if I have nothing to show about my qualification, my job, my wealth, or whatever, what kind of a person am I? What kind of a human being am I? And I think a travel buddy can really tell you, you are an asshole, or you are a very generous person, or you are a very, very nice person, or very intelligent person, or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, it's a good
Interesting.
reality check. You're right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I also think that, yeah, traveling actually is a really good way to find like good friends.
Hmm.
Because like they don't know where you come from, who you are, how much wealth you have. So yeah, yeah, um, yeah, like I don't consider myself to be wealthy, but I'm an entrepreneur. I have a small business, but
Right.
usually, like when I travel, like I would probably like become prefer to become a good friend with somebody who doesn't know that I'm an entrepreneur. Just for the
Hmm.
way you are, and then once you become good friends, then you're like, oh yeah, I actually have a small business. It's um,
Hmm.
I mean, not that travelers care, but I don't know. In Kyrgyzstan, at least, I feel like sometimes people do care, like what you do and maybe how much wealth
Hmm.
you have. So, yeah,
In Singapore, we absolutely care. So the listeners in Singapore will like they will call me out for judging my own people, but I think in Singapore, there is a bit of superficiality where if you're like a college graduate versus not a college graduate, or if you're, I mean, I'm sure people judge even on clothes or whatever. It's
yeah,
something
same
that we
here.
are very, it's something, maybe it's nothing to do only with Singapore. Maybe almost every society who has seen a bit of wealth starts kind of categorizing people that, okay, you have this nice clothes and this qualification, so you are better than the other jackass who doesn't have a qualification. But that just goes out the window as soon as you're on the road and you're traveling
Yeah,
solo,
yeah,
because
exactly.
the person who is genuine and who is nice and who is generous and polite, that person is going to have a far easier time traveling solo than someone who is like arrogant and selfish, like that shampoo borrowing lady. So, oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm making such a big deal about it. I could have shared my toothpaste with her every day and still not run out of toothpaste, but it was just so annoying that every morning you come
Yeah,
and you ask for shampoo, and she would always ask for different things. She would not ask for toothpaste every day. She would ask for toothpaste, the next day shampoo, then soap, and God knows what
Yeah,
else.
that's annoying. Yeah. I would not like to be a travel buddy for the person like that, you know.
Oh my
It's,
God.
yeah,
Oh my
it
God.
tells about the person that the person is more about consuming than sharing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. This has been very cool. This has been very insightful. Thank you for, yeah,
Thank
thank you
you. Yeah.
for making me part of this podcast. It's very cool. So
Well, thank you for,
you're gonna do
yeah.
this regularly, yeah?
Yes. I hope so. I hope
Okay.
I'm not gonna run out of my stories. Yeah, because
Yeah,
so far I've only visited like 15 countries. Um,
okay.
yeah, like if you look at Kyrgyzstan, actually, I'm probably one of the most traveled people from Kyrgyzstan. But if you look at the
Hmm.
world, probably I'm one of the least traveled people. So,
You know, I always this is something that I've posted about on Facebook and shared in among my friend circle also. Like, not everyone has been afforded the opportunity either because of visa laws or because of your financial standing. Not everyone is afforded the ability to travel internationally. There are many people in this world who have not even gone out of their own country, and not because they don't want to. I'm sure it's just human nature to go out and explore. However, if life does afford you that opportunity where you can travel with a visa or without visa, and you have the money to travel, it's almost like a moral obligation for you to go out and travel and like neutralize your biases and your thoughts about, oh, the people from the east are like this, people from the west are like this. You have no choice if you, especially if you solo travel. Your interactions, your experiences will neutralize your biases, and when you come back home, you will be a nicer person, you will be a more balanced person. It's always, I feel it's like an obligation that you have on yourself if you have the money and you have the ability to travel with the visas and passport. And
that's
yeah.
true. It's a great advantage. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think that the quality of life is measured by how much you travel. So I think you have a good quality of life if you can travel twice a year. Yeah, I think it's not how much you make as much. I mean, it's the second priority, but the first priority is really traveling, being able to travel.
It's in Southeast Asia, it's very common for us to make, we call it weekend getaway. So in fact, the
you guys have
Airlines,
great flight connections. Yeah, and it's so
amazing.
cheap. You are lucky.
We are very lucky. We are indeed very lucky. So if you're not from Southeast Asia and you're listening to this podcast, get your backside to either Singapore or Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur, because these are the most well-connected airports, and you can kind of put your bags in one of these airports. I recommend Singapore because I'm from Singapore, and and you can take very cheap flights, like $50 to $100. You can take cheap flights and explore another country. And chances are that if you have a visa for Singapore, chances are that you should be able to get visas for a few other countries in Southeast Asia also. And it can be super cheap to travel in Southeast Asia. Yeah, we are very lucky. You're right. You're lucky.
Yeah. From Kyrgyzstan, it's much harder to travel. Okay, so we've been talking for 2 hours now.
No, I'm very grateful to be on this podcast, and I look forward to the future ones as well.
Yeah,
I would like to join the future ones if I can.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks a lot for being my guest today. It was a pleasure talking with you and sharing the stories. Very insightful, and I hope the people who are listening to us right now, they will find something interesting for them as well. Make some discoveries, and it will help to make traveling maybe more qualitative. To bring in more. Yeah.
Higher quality travel
High
travel
quality.
buddies.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Alrighty. Let's sign off.
All right.